The first time I cried at a movie, my childhood comic book hero died after a decade of watching him. The second time I cried at a movie, I realized what it takes to be a real life hero and what it does to your soul. I'm not a movie reviewer, so this isn't a review per se. I'm not an activist, so I won't be urging you to give to any organization in particular. I'm not a professional lawyer, cop, law enforcement agent, government worker, or any other type of job that would give years of studies and experience on how the things that happen in this movie play out compared to what would be considered quote-unquote real life. I'm not going to be analyzing this movie's particulars frame shot by frame shot. I am, however, a man in his 24th year who wants nothing more than to one day be a father, hold down a house, and make my family, both elder and junior, proud. So I'll be talking out my thoughts after having this experience alone in a theater about a movie that I believe everybody should see, even if you have to see it alone. This video is just to get something that's been on my mind, that something Sound of Freedom, off of my chest. Anyway, I went to the movies this past Monday for what was the first time ever alone. I decided to watch Sound of Freedom as I heard it was not just controversial, but had a lot to say. I thought, okay, sure, I'll check it out. I know it has to do with child sex trafficking, and I know I'm the only person who would willingly watch this that is in my inner circle of life that's within driving distance. So why not? What I expected was a documentary-styled movie about a man fighting to free one or two children from a sex trafficking ring with the support of, at the very least, the American government. What I got was real-life security footage of child kidnappings happening around the globe with little to no subtext. What you see is what happened. No fiction, no implications. Only evil. The next hour and a half to 2 hours were, to put it lightly, mind-boggling. Let me ask you a question. Do you think bad people exist? I do suppose I mean a little bit the people who fight for a perverse ideology. I might a little bit mean your local thrift shop thief who holds a cashier at gunpoint. But I don't exactly mean those type of bad people. We understand those evils. We can, at the very least, rationalize thievery in our head. What I'm talking about is someone so vile, so awful, you can't imagine what they do without also imagining them twirling a mustache with a loud hat in some sort of Disney-style evil castle upon a throne. And what about good people? News gets views, and we all want to see the proverbial car crash in our lives. We're desensitized in a way, yes, partly through the internet, but also mainly through the mainstream media to the atrocities of our world. You know the corporate mass productions of a society where the agenda perpetuates the news due to the news being so agenda-driven that it causes people to act in a way that push the agenda due to the story spinning when in reality it was against the agenda that creates the stories. It's a cycle, and we understand the death that cycle creates. And no, I'm not saying without news we wouldn't have that cycle, but it doesn't help either. We get thievery, adultery, gluttony, yes, the sins of both the Bible and those of our modern day society. But we understand those. So when was the last time you heard about a hero? A real hero. Yeah, that can include the soldiers of history who lived and died willingly, by instinct, to save not just the battle, not just the mission, but their friends, the men and women in the foxholes that laid with them. But it's been a while since those days were common. So nowadays, the news, once proud to fly patriotism and brotherhood among men in combat, now take the modern day wars, and the wars of the past that are still recent and bitter tasting in our mouths, but they only report on the deaths of honorable soldiers of modern battles. They rarely, if at all, report on the sacrifices that they made. They chose to make, and those made by the soldiers still living that led to the moment of those who died before crossing the Jordan River. Heroes today have to be sought out for to understand. Villains to understand of modern day need only a glance at a local News 25 station. So, This video is about Sound of Freedom. The movie subject matter? Child sex trafficking. The story? Based on true events. But most importantly, the movie? It's an experience. As I said, I want to be a father. Children are not just annoying little brats. They're children. If that description doesn't make sense to you yet, I pray in time it will. This movie might just help at least a little bit explain what that description means. So Tim Ballard, an agent of the U.S. government, is met with more than his fair shake of choices to make in life. Sacrifice for what's right, or choose safety over freedom for others. The writing rule of show don't tell, quote unquote, is a dangerous one when dealing with this subject. So instead of telling, and instead of showing, the movie does a solemn nod to you and makes sure you hear what it's saying by grabbing your hand and walking you all around the circles of hell. The burnt forests on the edge of the entryway. The people crying looking through the barrier of the circle for their loved ones who couldn't save themselves. The movie walks you around the edge until you can't look into the circle anymore, and you have to look away and ask questions. The movie thankfully has answers. Tim Ballard, a real man with real stories about real-world events and real-world evils, saves the boys and girls trapped in that hellish circle by putting his everything on the line. And let me be clear, by everything, I don't just mean his mortal life. If you have a job, you have a schedule. You're a leg for that table to stand on. Take the leg, the weight of the work has to shift as to not fall. Tim Ballard is a father. He is a husband. He is an employee. There are many legs that he is acting as for many tables to stand on. He is a man who has taken down many, many awful people. And he puts it on the line for dozens, hundreds, and at the end, one children and child. This movie is clearly about good and evil. This movie is an example of what that looks like in real life. That evil doesn't have to be some old man atop a throne. It can be anyone. It can be either sex, any color, and an infinite amount of awful. But why specifically did I cry? Why was I sitting alone in a theater of 8 people at 6 p.m., bawling my eyes out on a movie that I randomly decided to go watch on a Monday? Sound of Freedom explains good and evil. You know there's evil people out there. I'm pretty sure that was your answer to my question earlier. And you know that there's good people out there. You know the acts, you know the outcomes, you know the story, and you know the reasonings. But do you understand the people doing these good and bad acts? Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, think you know why these people do what they do? The good and the bad. The most important question over any is, do you want to truly understand? Sound of Freedom isn't about Tim Ballard. It isn't about the evil humans that commit acts of indescribable horribleness against innocent children. It's about the children themselves. You understand after the movie the emotion behind everything as close as you might ever want to understand. More than you might have thought you were capable of. What toll it takes on the souls of those who fight for justice, and the toll it takes on the souls of those who lose more than we might ever be able to comprehend, lest we had been in their shoes. I may have been a bit poetic in this video. I may have been a little overwordy, and also maybe not completely clear. So let me be clear. Sound of Freedom will be a wake-up call to anyone who wants a future in this world as a soldier of good for exactly what you will be up against and what you must have to deem yourself able to willingly sacrifice so that you can stand up and fight for what you think is right. You have to decide what you're willing to give. It is a heavy-ass movie, and it is dark, but it's realistic, and it's based on true real-life events, And it is a movie about a subject not only ill-spoken about, but often protected by the very people that we believe are fighting it. It will break you. And if it does, be a little bit proud. Because that means you have a soul. It means you have empathy. And it means you can understand things that you may not have ever wanted to even think you were capable of understanding. But if it doesn't break you, at least you now know what others in this world must do to be considered, if not, be a real-life hero. Alright, so that was kind of my summary about Sound of Freedom, and that was all script written. That's one of my first times ever properly writing a script for a video, and now I'm going off script, wouldn't you think? But, that was kind of me having to put everything in my head to paper. So, with this section of the video, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience of watching this film. Like I said, there were 8 people in this theater, and I went in thinking, okay, well, it's going to be hard to watch, and I know the subject matter, but it'll be a good movie to watch. And the last time I cried was Endgame with Iron Man dying. And I think that's valid. I grew up with Iron Man. I love Robert Downey Jr. But, within the first 20 minutes, man, I must have had tears streaming down my face 3 times by that point. The movie, I watched it now 3 days ago, and it hasn't left my head. Every day I just want someone to talk about it with so I can get it off my chest. And for the first time in my life, I don't have that because nobody that I know is really willing to watch this movie because it's so heavy. It's so real. There's things in this movie that, yeah, I understand. I know. The words put together, they don't need a visual aid. You don't want a visual aid. You understand what it means, and you have to just basically go, all right, nope, you stop talking now. I understand what you mean. Just skip over that part. But this movie doesn't skip. It walks you through it. It physically opens your eyes and says, watch. And you watch. And maybe it's because I'm young. I'm 24. I know I'm young. I make jokes about being old because I've got horrible vision, a bad knee, bad lungs, all this and that. But experience-wise, I'm still very young. And I understood that these types of people exist, but I never understood the people that do them. And this movie spends an uncomfortably awkward amount of time with the people that do these things. And it makes you understand them. It makes you see them. It makes you hear them. It makes you think about them. And you realize these people are just normal members of society in the eyes of everybody else, but in reality, in the eyes of the mirror, they're not. And that's, I don't know. That was one thing that really shocked me in a way. Because, yeah, okay, obviously, serial killers, you hear about, all these horrible evil human beings that have murdered countless people, and everybody's like, oh yeah, but he was such a great guy. And then 2 years later you hear that there were a bunch of dead bodies in his basement or her basement, and you're shocked because you never would have known. And yeah, okay, I've never seen that myself, but with this, it's different. It really is. It's hard to explain. And then it shows you their twisted, evil, horrible, awful, every other adjective in the English lexicon mindset of things, and it makes me physically sick. It makes me just ill. Really, really ill to think and see that I understand now who these people are as a human, and I wish I didn't. But then to say, all right, that there are bad people in this world, but there are good people, and to see how good those people are, what the main character of this movie, Tim Ballard, was willing to lose for one child, for so many children, how selfless of a soul you have to do what he did, knowing where it could lead. It's that kind of hope I'm not used to, I guess. That sounds really bad, but I'm not used to that. And it was a shock to the system that these good people, true definition of good people, exist. And mix that with the bad, and then in the middle you have the children. The movie's portrayal of what they go through, there's no good way to say anything that I want to say, because it's all just shame that I've never wanted to think about it. I never wanted to hear it because of how ugly of a discussion it is. But now that I've sat through a movie that documents many things and shows you many things, I don't know. I don't know. All I want to say is, if you have the ability to go see this movie, please go see it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a really hard movie to watch. This is a movie that I've heard makes people angry because they're so broken up by what they saw. That's their response. It makes people depressed. It messes with you. But for me, it was a deer in headlights with nothing but crying in the middle, because I can't describe it. So, if you can, go see this movie. Ignore the politicization of this movie. Ignore all the talks about QAnon. Ignore about Trumpers. Ignore it about leftists. Ignore it about the Sanders and the Bernies and the Clintons and the Bidens and the any other politician's name, left, right, center, middle, up, down, diagonal. Just go see the movie. Put all of that on mute and experience it. Because if nothing else, it will make you sad, but it will make you hopeful. And those two things combined are an emotion that I never experienced at the same time like before. There's a link in the description to a angel, I think it's .com/freedom. I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head, but you can look at it in the description. They have tickets pretty much for free that you can claim if you want to go see it. Maybe I don't know how it works. I went before I knew about that, and I purchased my ticket for, what was it, $15 on a Monday at 2 p.m. with 8 people in the theater by myself. But it's a hard movie to watch, but it's a movie that you really should go see. And I don't mean that as it's a chore or it's, homework or whatever, but you owe it to yourself to feel like this movie makes you feel. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I don't know why. I guess. I feel like I repeated myself 15 times when I went off script. But thank you for listening, and I appreciate you a lot. I really do. This isn't the time or place for channel updates. There'll be a video for that if you're interested, coming out eventually. But thank you for listening. I needed to get this movie out of my head for many reasons. And I had no one to talk about it with. And I'm not the type of person who can figure things out and sort out my own thoughts in my head. I need to talk it out in reality to another person. And if you can be my other person, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I don't know how this video is gonna come out. I don't know what I'm gonna do for visual, but either way, hope you guys have a great day. Thank you guys for listening, and please, I say this every video, and I mean it every single time. And right now, I want it heard more than anything else. Somebody somewhere loves you, even if they don't know it yet. Please remember that. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, guys. And goodbye.